This feng shui mistake is keeping you unhappy. Have you ever had the strange feeling that no matter how much inner work you do, how much you try to stay positive, how much you journal, pray, meditate, hustle, rest, or tell yourself to be grateful, something in your daily life still feels heavy, dull, or quietly draining? And what if the reason is not entirely in your mind, but sitting around you every single day in the space you call home? Curious, because this is the part many people miss. They keep trying to fix their mood while living inside an environment that keeps pulling their system back into stress, irritation, tiredness, or emotional flat. Then they blame themselves. They think they lack discipline. They think they need more healing. They think they are somehow failing at peace, when in reality, the place they live in may be sending the opposite message all day long without them even noticing it. Size. Now, let me ask you two simple questions before we go further. Have you ever walked into some homes and immediately felt calm, clear, and somehow lighter, even though nothing dramatic was happening there? And have you ever been in another home that looked perfectly nice on the surface, maybe even expensive, but something about it made you feel uneasy, tired, cramped, annoyed, or like you could not fully relax? Stay with me until the end of this video for 3 reasons. Because first, I'm going to show you why unhappiness is sometimes not a personal flaw at all, but a response to the environment you keep living in. Second, I'm going to walk you through the biggest feng shui mistakes that quietly create emotional drag in daily life. And third, I'm going to show you how to start shifting the feeling of your home without needing to tear the whole place apart or turn your house into a spiritual theme park. And before we go further, if this kind of conversation helps you look at life in a deeper and more practical way, click like, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with someone whose home may look fine on the outside, but does not actually feel good to live in, because sometimes one small shift in awareness changes how a person feels every single day. Now let's reset the frame properly. Most people think happiness is something they create internally and that the home is just the background. 4 walls, a roof, some furniture, some decoration, done. But Feng Shui does not see your home as background. It sees your home as a system that is always talking to your nervous system, whether you are listening or not. Your home is constantly telling your body whether this is a place to soften or to brace, whether this is a place of support or of subtle pressure, whether this is a place where energy can gather and restore you, or whether it leaks out in 10 little ways that seem harmless until you realize you feel tired all the time for no obvious reason. That is why some people can do so much self-care and still feel off. They are trying to pour clean water into a bucket that has small holes everywhere. And this is where Feng Shui becomes useful when it is approached properly. Not as superstition, not as decorative theater, not as random objects placed around the house because someone online told you to hang something shiny in the corner and your life would magically improve. Real Feng Shui is about reading how a space behaves, how support is created or removed, how flow happens or gets blocked, and how the layout of a place influences the emotional and physical experience of the person living inside it. So when I say a Feng Shui mistake may be keeping you unhappy, I do not mean your house is cursing you like some melodramatic movie plot. I mean your environment may be reinforcing tension, poor rest, weak support, overexposure, emotional clutter, and subtle psychological discomfort in ways you have normalized because you see them every day. Let's start with the first and probably most important mistake, because if this is wrong, many other good things in the home lose power. Your bed. People underestimate this so badly it is almost impressive. They will obsess over career strategy, relationship compatibility, mindfulness apps, supplements, and all kinds of life upgrades, and then sleep in a position that quietly keeps the body on alert every single night. It is like trying to recover emotionally while resting in a place that tells your subconscious, stay ready, stay exposed, stay unsettled. In Feng Shui, the bed is not just where you sleep. It represents your body, your emotional support, your capacity to recover, and your ability to feel safe enough to soften. So if the bed position is wrong, your life can start feeling heavier, not because destiny hates you, but because you are never properly recharging. One of the most common mistakes is when the bed is directly in line with the door, especially when your feet point straight out toward it. Some people call this the coffin position, and dramatic name aside, the real issue is simple. When your body is directly aligned with the strongest movement line in the room, The sense of containment weakens. The room is not holding you. The room is pulling energy past you. That often shows up as lighter sleep, more alertness, more dream disturbance, more irritability, and the feeling of never fully settling. Another mistake is putting the bed right under a window without proper support. Again, forget mystical drama for a moment and think about the body. A solid wall behind you gives the system a sense of backing. A window behind you often feels less secure, more exposed, more open, and psychologically less settled, especially if the curtains are thin or the external environment is noisy or active. Add exposed beams above the bed, and now you have visual pressure literally hanging over the place where your body is supposed to let go. This is why the commanding position matters so much. The commanding position does not mean perfection. It means the bed is placed so you can sense the door without being directly in line with it, with a solid wall behind you giving support and some measure of control in the room. The body loves support. The mind loves orientation. When the room gives both, sleep changes, mood changes, patience changes. People often think they need to work on their emotional regulation when what they may need first is a bed that is not quietly irritating their nervous system every night. And if this is landing for you already, click like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who is convinced they have an energy issue when they may simply have a bed issue. Now let's move to the front door, because if the bed is where you recover, the front door is where your home receives life. This is where so many homes quietly repel instead of receive. In Feng Shui, the front door is often called the mouth of Qi, which is a poetic way of saying it is the main intake point for how the home engages with outside movement, opportunity, people, and energy. But look at how many homes treat this area. Shoes exploding everywhere, bags slumped on the floor, delivery boxes waiting for a trial they will never attend, dim lighting, dirty corners, broken hinges, maybe even a mirror directly facing the door, throwing everything right back out again. And then people wonder why they feel stuck, flat, or as though nothing fresh enters their life. Now, I know some people hear this and roll their eyes because they think clutter is just visual untidiness. But clutter is not neutral. Clutter is delayed decision. Clutter is trapped attention. Clutter is unresolved movement. Every object sitting there without a proper home is quietly asking your mind to hold it somewhere in the background. One shoe does not matter. One bag does not matter. But 10 little unfinished things create a field of low-grade friction. And when that friction sits right at the entry, your home begins greeting you with mental drag. A bright, open, clean entryway feels very different. It tells the body there is room here. Things can move here. You can arrive here. That sounds simple, but simplicity is the whole point. Good feng shui often works because the body understands it before the mind has to explain it. Open door, clear path, warm light, clean feeling, healthy object or plant, nothing aggressive or broken right at the threshold. Suddenly, the home feels like it is receiving rather than resisting. The same goes for a squeaky or damaged front door. People ignore it because it feels small. But a door that drags, jams, sticks, squeals, or looks neglected is not a small thing symbolically. It becomes the exact place where smooth access becomes effort. And when that is your main entrance, the home begins expressing that difficulty over and over again. Now, let's go back to the bedroom for another mistake people underestimate because it feels clever on a practical level and terrible on an energetic one. Storage under the bed. This one always annoys people a little because modern living has trained everyone to worship efficiency. So if there is empty space under a bed, somebody immediately wants to stuff it with boxes, old files, winter clothes, ex-relationship relics, forgotten electronics, shoes, and emotional fossils from 3 versions of themselves ago. And on a practical level, yes, you are using the space. But on an emotional and feng shui level, you are sleeping on top of unresolved content every night. Again, keep it simple. Sleep is when the body drops. It is when repair happens. It is when the subconscious moves things around. If directly under you, there is stored emotional residue, work stress, memory clutter, relationship history, or random dead objects you do not even value enough to use, you are not sleeping over empty supportive space. You are sleeping over compressed stagnation. That affects people more than they realize. They wake up tired. They dream more restlessly. They feel emotionally sticky without understanding why. And because they do not connect the feeling to the environment, They internalize it as mood or personality. Best case, under the bed should be clear. Not because some invisible inspector is grading your spirituality, but because open space under the bed supports cleaner circulation and a lighter psychological field. If you absolutely must store something there because space is genuinely limited, then keep it soft, clean, and neutral. Extra linens, maybe, but not old letters, not tax stress, not broken objects, not memory boxes from a dead relationship, and not your mobile office of doom. Now, if you are hearing this and suddenly thinking about what exactly is under your bed right now, that is usually how this works. The home reveals itself very quickly once you stop treating it like a fixed backdrop and start reading it like a message. The next mistake is a little subtler, but once you understand it, you start noticing it everywhere. Your home may be unconsciously telling your mind the wrong story. This happens through decor. People think decoration is taste. Feng Shui knows decoration is messaging. Everything you place in your home is teaching your subconscious something about what is normal, what is repeated, what is emotionally familiar, and what you are willing to sit beside every day. Look at the art in a home and you often understand the emotional weather before the owner says anything. Lonely figures, storm scenes, dark aggressive imagery, sad abstract pieces, broken shapes, dead plants, cracked frames, clocks that stopped working years ago, sentimental junk they do not even like but feel guilty removing. It all sounds harmless when each item is looked at separately, but together it becomes a constant environment of emotional suggestion. Your home becomes a three-dimensional mood board of whatever you have unconsciously accepted. This is why some spaces feel heavy even when they are expensive. Money can buy furniture, it cannot automatically buy coherent energy. A room filled with beautiful things can still feel emotionally off if those things do not support the life you actually want to feel. So what is the fix here? You become a curator, not just an owner. You stop asking only, does this match the sofa, and start asking, what is this object teaching my system every day? Does it feel uplifting, warm, calm, supportive, alive, elegant, hopeful, clear? Or does it feel unresolved, dramatic, stale, guilty, lonely, confusing, or tired? Most people do not need more decoration, they need more honesty. If an item drains you, remove it. If an item reminds you of a version of yourself you no longer want to live inside, remove it. If an item is broken and you have not repaired it for months, either repair it properly or let it go. If a plant is dying and you keep pretending it is still okay, you are literally placing declining life force on display and asking the room to call that normal. This is not about becoming sterile or fake. It is about becoming conscious, because the home is always programming something, whether you choose that programming or not. Now, another mistake that does not get enough attention is the idea of false sanctuary. A lot of people think being at home means they are automatically resting, but the layout and use of the home may say otherwise. Work at the dining table, laptop in bed, endless cables in the bedroom, no real distinction between activity space and recovery space, television shouting in the background, things half finished everywhere, and the result is that the body never fully gets the signal that one mode has ended and another has begun. This matters because happiness is not only built from dramatic breakthroughs. A lot of it comes from the nervous system being able to complete small cycles. Work, then stop. Movement, then rest. Stress, then release. When the home blurs all boundaries, the body stays semi-alert even in supposed downtime. That is why it helps so much when a space has a clear emotional role. The bedroom supports sleep and softness. The entrance supports receiving and return. The work zone supports action. The dining area supports nourishment and connection. When a home becomes too mixed, too messy, too unresolved in function, people often describe the feeling the same way. They say, I don't know why, but I just feel off at home. That is not random. That is the environment talking. And if this conversation is making you see your space differently, click like, subscribe, and share it with someone who keeps trying to fix their life from the inside out, while ignoring the room that keeps reinforcing the same feeling every day. Now let's touch briefly on house numbers, because people often get too mystical or too dismissive about this. The honest answer is that the number vibration of a home can add a subtle tone, but it should never be treated like the whole story. A house number does not overpower terrible layout, clutter, bad sleep position, broken entry flow, and dead emotional decor. It is one layer, not the ruler of the universe. So if someone is living in a so-called lucky number house, but the place is chaotic, oppressive, and poorly arranged, the number is not going to save them like some superhero with administrative duties. The more practical use of house number awareness is as a supporting layer of intention. If the home number reflects an energy that feels too sharp, too unstable, too isolated, or too draining for the current life stage, you can soften or rebalance that symbolically, but do not make the classic mistake of trying to cure a lived problem with a decorative number while continuing to sleep under a beam facing a cluttered door with old pain stored under the bed. Humans do love the convenient symbolic fix. It saves them from having to move the heavy furniture and confront their accumulated rubbish. Very efficient, very human. The truth is much simpler. Start with what the body feels. Start with flow, support, calm, clarity, and function. Start with removing the things that your system already knows are wrong. Because here is the deeper point of this whole video. Unhappiness is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is not heartbreak. Sometimes it is not failure. Sometimes it is not depression or destiny or some huge life problem. Sometimes it is 1,000 tiny frictions repeated daily in a space that was supposed to support you and does not. A bed that does not hold you, an entry that does not receive you, a room full of clutter that does not release you, objects that do not uplift you, a house that does not let your nervous system soften. And when those things repeat long enough, they shape mood, patience, rest, motivation, and even your capacity to feel hopeful. That is why Feng Shui, done properly, is not about superstition. It is about honesty. It asks a very direct question. Does your environment support the life you say you want? If the answer is no, then no amount of affirmations will fully compensate for a space that keeps training your system in the opposite direction. So where do you begin? Begin with one thing, not 10. Not a complete renovation fantasy you will abandon by next week. One thing. Move the bed if it is badly placed. Clear the entry if it is blocked. Empty the underbed storage if it is full of emotional junk. Remove the dead or broken item you have been avoiding. Replace one draining image with one supportive one. That is enough to begin. Because the goal is not to create a perfect house overnight. The goal is to stop living inside messages that keep telling your body to stay tense, stuck, unsupported, or emotionally flat. Once that begins to change, people often say something very simple but very revealing. They say, I don't know why, but the house just feels better. Exactly, that is the point. If this perspective gave you a new way to look at your home and your own emotional experience, click like, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone who needs to stop blaming themselves for a feeling their space may be reinforcing every single day. And if you want deeper conversations about how environment, energy, timing, and structure affect your life in real practical ways, come join the Destiny Architect Telegram chat, where we continue these discussions with people who are serious about aligning the life they live with the space they live in. I'll see you there.